Have you ever found yourself like completely caught in the middle of some family drama that just explodes? Or maybe, felt totally invisible when you really needed help? Our deep dive today takes us back to this ancient story that really hits home with those kinds of feelings. It's quite surprising, actually. We're jumping into a really powerful and honestly often overlooked bit of the Abrahamic story. Genesis 16, specifically verses 5 through 10. It's this intensely human drama involving Sarai, Abram, and Hagar. Things escalate quickly, and then there's this unexpected divine encounter. Now, to help us unpack this, we've been looking at some great analysis, particularly from Hagar in the Wilderness, God Sees and Multiplies. It really digs into the original Hebrew, pulling out some fascinating language details and, well, a lot of emotional depth that kind of breathes new life into it. So our mission today is to pull out the key insights from this foundational text. We want to show how these ancient words shed light on themes that are still relevant in justice, running away, and how God sometimes steps in unexpectedly for those on the margins. Seriously, when you look at it through the lens of the original language, it really does flip the script.
It really does. And the Hebrew details are just, well, they're extraordinary.
Yeah.
When we get to Genesis 16, the tension in that household is already palpable. Sarai and Abram have this promise of descendants, right? But Sarai is still barren. So in this attempt to kind of help God's plan, Sarai gives her Egyptian servant Hagar to Abram. The idea is Hagar will bear the child for Sarai. But when Hagar actually conceives, well, everything changes. The whole dynamic shifts, and that leads straight into this confrontation we're looking at. The source material really highlights how this domestic situation just spirals.
Okay, so the scene is set. Tensions are high. Hagar's pregnant. Sarai feels scorned. And boom, Genesis 16, verse 5. Sarai just lets Abram have it. Her words are sharp. She says, "My wrong be upon you." That's more than just being upset, right? What's packed into that phrase?
Oh, it's way more than just being upset. The Hebrew here is incredibly forceful. She says, "Lamasiele." And that word thomas, it's crucial. It means violence, injustice, even wrong, but in a very strong, almost legal sense. She feels like a profound injustice, a real violation has happened to her, impacting her rights or her standing. And she's not just blaming Abram. She's laying the nomas, the wrong itself, directly onto him. It's a heavy, heavy accusation. It implies something that demands fixing.
Wow, okay, so not just I feel wronged, but you are responsible for this violence against me. That's intense. And she doesn't stop there, does she? She takes it up another notch. She says, "May the Lord judge between me and you." What's the significance of pulling God into it like that?
Yeah, that's a direct appeal for divine judgment. The Hebrew phrase, yishpet, YHWH, beni wabeneka, it's basically courtroom language. She's asking God himself to step in as the judge, the ultimate referee in this messy, painful argument. It's like she's saying the human level has failed. Abram hasn't fixed it, maybe can't fix it, so only God can determine who's right and who's wrong here. It really shows how desperate she feels, how deep the crisis is in her eyes. Human solutions are off the table.
Okay, so Sarai throws down this gauntlet, accusing Abram of injustice, invoking God's judgment. All eyes are on Abram now. How does he respond? Does he step up?
Tragically, no. His response is, well, it's a lack of response, really, a total abdication of responsibility. Verse 6 shows this profound passivity. Instead of mediating or protecting Hagar, who's obviously vulnerable, he just washes his hands of it. He says, "Behold, your servant is in your power. Do to her as you please." The Hebrew, hinabianatak, literally, "Look, your maidservant is in your hand."
Yes.
Basically just punting the problem right back to Sarai. Gives her complete control. He completely sidesteps his role, his responsibility here, and the consequences.
Yeah.
They're immediate and awful.
Yeah, the text says right after that, Sarai dealt harshly with her. That phrase, dealt harshly, it just sounds so painful. What's the weight of that in the original language?
This is where, as our source points out, there's a real linguistic stinger. It hits hard. The Hebrew verb is wateanea, from the root ana. This word means to afflict, to oppress, to humble, even to violate. It's not just Sarai being mean, it's deliberate subjugation, inflicting suffering. But here's the truly shocking part, the connection the source emphasizes. This is the exact same word used later, repeatedly, in Exodus, to describe Pharaoh's brutal oppression of the Israelites in Egypt.
Wait, the same word, as in Egyptian slavery.
The very same root word. Think about that. Sarai, the matriarch, the wife of the covenant bearer. She's acting like an oppressor. She's embodying the same kind of behavior as Pharaoh, Israel's great antagonist. It creates this deeply disturbing parallel. It highlights just how severe Hagar's suffering was, right there within this foundational family. It forces us to see the dark side, the power dynamics, even in these sacred stories.
That parallel is absolutely chilling. It reframes Sarai's action completely. It's not just personal cruelty. It echoes this national trauma. So facing that level of affliction, that kind of oppression, It's no wonder Hagar runs. She has to get out. She flees into the wilderness.
Exactly. Her flight, wadi braf, in Hebrew meaning to flee, it's a direct result of that oppression, a desperate act. And interestingly, that same Hebrew root, bara, is used for other key escapes in the Bible. Jacob fleeing Laban, and significantly, Israel fleeing slavery in Egypt. It positions Hagar right away as this archetypal figure, the underdog, the refugee. She's utterly alone, running into this barren, dangerous place, totally vulnerable.
And right there, at her absolute lowest point alone, desperate, in the middle of nowhere, the story takes this incredible turn. Something happens. God steps in. The text says, "The angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness." Now, you mentioned that phrase, the angel of the Lord. Why is its first appearance here so significant?
It's hugely significant. The phrase Mal-A-Y-H-W-H, the angel of YHWH, shows up for the very first time in the entire Bible, right here, with Hagar. This isn't just any messenger. It's generally understood as a direct manifestation of God's presence, appearing specifically for her, this marginalized woman. And equally important is that verb found, Wayamaha. It doesn't suggest a random meeting like, oh, look who I bumped into. No, it implies intentional searching, active pursuit. God didn't wait for Hagar to find him. He went to her. He sought her out in her moment of deepest need. That says so much about God's character.
Wow, he sought her out. And she's found at a spring, which is life itself in the desert. Our source also noted something cool about the name for that spring.
Yes. It's called Alein Hamayim, literally by the eye of the waters. In Hebrew, springs are often called eyes, right? Because water bubbles up from them, letting the land see life. It's beautiful imagery and so poignant here. It's like God meets Hagar at a place of sight. It subtly reinforces this core idea. God sees her. Even when Abram and Sarai overlooked her, oppressed her, God sees. It's this profound moment where his seeing presence meets her isolation.
That really brings God sees to life, doesn't it? Okay, so he intentionally finds her, meets her at the eye of the waters, and then the angel speaks to her. And the way he addresses her is just powerful. What does he say?
He calls her by her name, Hagar, servant of Sarai. Now think about her life in that household. She was probably just the maid, the servant, defined by her role, her status. Her name, her personal identity, was likely erased or ignored. But here, God's messenger calls her Hagar. It's this radical act of restoring her dignity, acknowledging her as an individual, someone with inherent worth, separate from her function. In a world that's stripped her of her identity, God gives it back. He sees her, not just her role. It's incredibly dignifying.
That's huge, just being seen and named by God. Then, after restoring that dignity, the angel asks her this question, one that kind of echoes other biblical encounters. He asks, "Where have you come from and where are you going?" What's the point of that question? Surely God already knows the answer.
Right? He definitely knows. The Hebrew is mizabanat Loki. It's not about information gathering for God. It's more like when God asks Adam, "Where are you?" or asks Elijah, "What are you doing here?" It's an invitation for Hagar to articulate her own story, her own truth, to voice her journey, her flight, her despair. By having her say it out loud where she came from, where she thinks she's going, or maybe that she doesn't know, God is helping her process it. It's an act of care, giving her space to acknowledge her reality before him. It dignifies her experience, making her an active participant, not just a passive victim.
So God sees her, names her, invites her story, but then comes the instruction, and honestly, it sounds incredibly hard. Return to your mistress and submit to her. Given the affliction, Nana, that seems almost cruel. How do we understand that?
It is incredibly hard, no question. And what's really striking, as you mentioned, is the word for submit, here, ani tat yadeha. It uses that exact same root, ana, to afflict, to humble. So God is literally telling her to return and place herself back under the hand that afflicts her. Now, the analysis suggests this isn't God endorsing the abuse. It's not saying the oppression is okay. Rather, it seems God is placing Hagar's very real personal suffering within the context of his larger unfolding plan. Her return, as difficult as it is, isn't just pointless endurance. It's directly connected to the astonishing promise that comes immediately after. A promise that changes everything for her.
Okay, so the difficult command leads directly into something unexpected. A promise.
An absolutely stunning promise. The angel tells Hagar, "I will surely multiply your offspring so that they cannot be numbered for multitude." Sound familiar?
Wow, yeah, that sounds exactly like the promise God gave to Abram.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so breathtaking. The Hebrew uses this emphatic doubling. Harba harba, I will greatly multiply. This is the core language of God's covenant promise to Abraham, the promise of countless descendants, a great nation. And here it is, being given directly to Hagar, an Egyptian slave woman, an outcast alone in the desert. It's revolutionary. It signifies that she, too, is included in God's plans and God's blessing, even if her path is different from Abram's line. It's this powerful confirmation that God sees her potential, her future, her descendants. That repetition, harba, harba, it just hammers home the certainty and the abundance God intends for her. It completely reframes her destiny.
That really is stunning. A direct encounter, a divine promise mirroring the main covenant promise, given to someone society considered utterly disposable. It truly flips the script, like you said.
Absolutely. If you weave all these threads together, the language, the narrative arc, this wilderness scene in Genesis 16 becomes this incredible turning point. You have Sarai, who afflicts, acting like Pharaoh. You have Hagar, who flees into desolation, but then God finds Morai, intentionally seeks her out. And he promises to multiply Arba, her descendants. It's a complete reversal of her human situation. Human cruelty leads to abandonment. Divine intervention leads to pursuit and promise.
So, right in the thick of human systems breaking down, of personal pain and injustice, God shows up for the one left out, the one considered least important.
Precisely. Our source calls it, quite profoundly, the first gospel in the desert. This is an incredibly early glimpse of God's character seeing, dignifying, extending grace to the outcast. It shows us so clearly. Human plans might bring pain, might create wildernesses, but Yahweh steps right into those wildernesses. He brings promises and a future, even for the ones nobody names, the ones who feel completely invisible.
So, wrapping this up, what does this deep dive into Genesis 16, just these few verses, really mean for you listening right now? Well, it shows us a God who is acutely aware of suffering, especially for those pushed to the edges. It's a really powerful reminder, isn't it, that even when things feel desperate, when people fail us, when systems fail us, God's presence can bring dignity. It can bring purpose. It can bring a future. Being overlooked by people doesn't mean you're overlooked by God.
Yeah. And maybe that leads to a final thought for you to chew on. Consider this. Where in your own life, or just in the world you see around you, do you recognize situations that echo Hagar's? Situations of injustice, marginalization, feeling invisible. And in those places, those wildernesses, maybe ask yourself, where might you look for that eye of the waters? That sign, however small, that an unseen divine presence is actively searching, actively seeing, even and especially when no one else seems to be.